Hi, Aaron. How are you? It's David. You may not remember me, but I met you at church, and I think it's very neat that one of my friends actually has a YouTube account that's pretty current, and I you touched on a subject that means something to me, so I thought I would make a response to your video. Um, you can check out my channel. It's pretty bare. I've looked at some of your posts, and they're pretty entertaining, but mine aren't. And this is the first video where I've actually said something as opposed to like sing something, and and boy, it isn't as easy as it looks, is it? I've tried to record the video a couple of times, and it ended up being a video that I didn't want to watch. You know, where people just ramble and ramble and ramble, sort of like what I'm doing now. And so I made some notes that hate, homosexual, Jim Crow light, slaves not fair, no right. What the hell does that even mean? Okay. I don't know what it means, and I'm freaking out, but I'm gonna try to keep it together. Okay, you ready? Here goes. Is it fair to compare the plight of homosexuals and African Americans in their search for civil rights in this country? I think that my answer is just as hard as your question, and the answer for me is yes and no. No, I don't think it's fair to compare because uh, black people in this country, at least their ancestors at one time, were slaves. And slaves had no rights, as opposed to we homosexuals who have a reduced amount of rights. Those people had no rights at all, no representation at all. They weren't people at all. They were property. They're like the shirt on your back, the computer you're talking into, the jacket that you're wearing, this Coke can. That's a slave. They're for your use. They're property. They don't mean anything. For the purposes of taxation, slaves were later said to have been worth 3/5 of a human, but they didn't get 3/5 of the rights. Just 3/5 for tax purposes. The problem with that whole thing is that slaves aren't Coke cans. They are people. And so to think of a person as less than human, in my opinion, is pretty terrible. After the Civil War, they had a lot of rights, and they exercised those rights. And white people got nervous, and they made up laws called Jim Crow laws. Started in Mississippi, went through the entire South, lasted for almost a century, and pretty much made black people slaves again. Yeah, you had to pay them, um, but it wasn't the same as being a white worker. These people had skill sets that were different, and there was no place to make money, and they couldn't own land, and so they ended up, even though they were free, quote unquote, working for the massa again. So in that way, even after slavery, I don't think it's fair to compare. um, but in a way, I do think it's fair to compare ourselves to black people because of the whole Jim Crow issue that I brought up earlier. Jim Crow was a set of laws that were made to restrict the personal freedoms of people uh, in the most intimate detail. So you couldn't work, you couldn't shop at the same places, use the same restrooms, drink out of the same fountains, just because of your race. Um, I think it's a very, very light version what we're seeing now, but I think they're trying to do the same thing with homosexuals. They're trying to say because you're gay, you can't you can't get married. Granted, we can still use the same fountain, but but it's still taking away liberties. You know, it's still the same thing. And laws that do this aren't successful. You know, remember Prohibition? Remember Jim Crow? It's over now. You know, a great example of how this doesn't work. Uh, there are other laws that are actually still on the books that aren't working because they, you know, restrict personal freedoms. And I don't mean to get on the soapbox, but all the drug laws, pretty much, you know. So I think that it's fair to compare because it's hate. Hate always takes the same form. Hate always is spawned by differences in people. People will say, look, you're different from me. I don't know you. I don't like you. And they try to control you. They try to limit your difference so your difference doesn't rub off on them or anybody they know because they're uncomfortable with it. And when Jim Crow started, it was at a place where black people were exercising their rights to vote. They were exercising the rights that the Emancipation Proclamation gave them as new citizens of this land. And that's when folks got scared and started making laws. Well, I think it's the same thing going on now. People are scared of gay people. They're scared of how fast being gay has become accepted. And they're scared of how different it is from them. The truth is, it isn't different. I am. I've gotten, you can't be gay. You're fat. You can't be gay. You don't walk funny. You can't be gay. You have a beard. You can be gay and be all of those things. You can be gay and be anything. You wouldn't know if most people were gay unless they told you they were gay, or unless you talked with them long enough to figure it out. Gay is everything. And coming out of the closet, it was hard for me to identify with gay people because I didn't know what gay people were, because the only thing I had to go on was the stereotype. I grew up in a Southern family, a strict Christian home, where there weren't any gay people. I didn't know anybody who was gay. The only person I ever saw that was gay was the purple-headed drag queen at the front of the gay pride parade, wearing a penis hat. I don't own a penis hat. Yet. And I don't own a purple wig, and I'm not a drag queen, and I've never walked in the front of a gay pride parade, or in the back, or anywhere else in the gay pride parade, for that matter. And it's not because I'm not proud to be myself. It's just because that's not me. Gay people are everybody, and I admire activism. I think that's wonderful. That's talking the talk. But what I think everybody can do, whether they're an activist or not, is to walk the walk. It's to know people and love people and have people love them. And then people figure out you're gay. And they don't stop loving you because you're gay in most cases. Every once in a while you get a weirdo that says, oh, you're gay, I'm not going to talk to you. But most of the time, even if it's different from them, even if it's outside their paradigm, they're like, oh. And it makes them think. And that's the people I'm trying to reach. You know, the people who can think. So, anyway. I don't know if that was a good first video or not. It didn't really have an ending. Bye.